Ah, rats. How am I supposed to get any work done at all with these critters skittering all over the place? What's this? Ow! Thanks for that, I suppose. What have we got here? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Another assignment concerning rats? Well, at least this one describes a more reasonable scope. It looks like this world's purpose is another Heroes Challenge, this time using the Skaven Master Assassin to destroy one city in particular. Well, at least I don't have to spend 300 turns killing marauders of corn again. Being a hideous rat man whose job is skulking around with a sock on his head is not what comes to mind when I think of efficiency. It doesn't help that Skaven assassins are so fragile that Bretonnian damsels can take their lunch money. Today, we're elevating these rodents to royalty by turning our have-not crew into a take-all menace to society. The rules of this campaign are simple. I have to fill my army with assassins and destroy Nuln. No other units permitted besides those I start with. I can recruit one assassin for every 5 minor settlements I raise, or 1 for every capital settlement. Our intended first battle is against a gang of savage orcs who are too dumb to even notice us stabbing them, which is not a good matchup for our newborn miscreants. We settle on a different strategy altogether and train our heroes by raiding nearby provinces until we can find a settlement nobody is paying attention to. We demolish our own capital to get an early extra assassin, hoping that the attrition that we suffer for lacking a base won't bite me in the butt too bad until we can replace it. It's better to have the extra agent early in the game when things are difficult, and we'll attend to the attrition problem once we have some momentum. Our hero Snikch begins his destructive quest with 2 commendable allies in tow, Mike Rowe Games and the assassin Danny Arcadia. Mike Rowe is an Eshin sorcerer of the Skaven stealth school of magic and will be invaluable to our stabby intentions as he develops his skills. Assisting us in our mission today will be a combination of our most esteemed patrons as well as YouTubers spreading the joy of PS1 retro game development and animation. If you have even a modicum of interest in that topic, you had really ought to check them out. Our crew must keep moving since the ornery greenskins keep close on our heels while we plunder. Eventually, we spot a settlement that looks sparse enough to fall victim to our trainee cabal. The defenders should have no issue dealing with 3 measly rats, yet our assassins sneak up on them and pounce as a tiger would pounce on a rabbit. Mike Rowe learns the defenders into position by throwing ninja stars at them, and shortly after, Danny and Snikch leap from out of sight in a whirlwind of slicing. It is clear, however, that the defenders are putting up a steadfast resistance, and our modest mouse manslayers are quickly dropping in health. Luckily, we have an army ability which summons a temporary squadron of clan rats, distracting the garrison from our main characters while they work, keeping them alive long enough for them to finish the job. This early victory demonstrates that our goal is attainable, so now we head south in search of other victims to exploit. Once we have 5 heroes, we should be strong enough to leave the contemptible Cathay in search of our true objective, currently nestled deep in the bosom of the Empire. Unfortunately for us, these southern villages are infested with the undead, which are much better at soaking up our concentrated style of damage. Mike lures their bats out of position where we can handle them, which seems like a great start. However, nothing could prepare us for the slog we are about to endure. Hours are spent hacking through zombies and skeletons, and eventually everyone on our team takes a turn, running away at least once. But finally, the undead get spooked, and by spooked, I mean they all explode simultaneously, leaving us to demolish the Baleful Hills settlement. What's this? A buried treasure deep within the conquered vaults of the Baleful Hills? Some clever Cathayan had concealed this coveted cache with counterfeit clothes. It says pay-to-win game with no depth. But what's this? It's actually a game where paying is totally optional, and there's lots of depth. What? In order to get into this chest, we must answer 4 magical riddles. Firstly, is this game shallow and mindless? Absolutely not. This game looks like it has over 800 heroes and so many different game modes, it probably entertains consistently for years. Secondly, is this game a time grinder? Based on these magically summoned images, I have to assume that people spend so much time in the game because it's so gosh darn fun. I mean, heck, just turn auto battle mode on and multitask. Thirdly, is this game a pay-to-win game? Based on my rigorous research and comprehensive investigation, I have concluded that lots of endgame players have not spent any money at all. So really, it's more like spend to progress if you want to. How radical that we can enjoy the entire game for free. Wowee! Fourth, what is this magical game called? Raid Shadow Legends is celebrating its 5th anniversary with giveaways for new players, worth $50, including Epic Champion Lady Etessa and tons of in-game items. After reaching level 25, you'll get an additional 500,000 silver, epic skill tomes, potions, and so on. Plus, after installing through my link, you can use the promo code FESTIVAL5 to get Epic Tyrell and even more in-game currency. All available by downloading Raid only through my link in the description or with this QR code. I've played Raid myself and I can honestly say it's fun having so many heroes to collect. Come find me under the name PraximusYT, join my clan the Praximites, PRXI, and we'll capitalize on this awesome discovery together. So just hit my link in the description and I'll see you on the battlefield. Absolutely essential to our success is getting our hands on Snick's quest weapons, which luckily only requires winning 3 battles against Cathay, rather than some pitched battle that we would definitely lose at this point. We sneak past the savage orcs who chased us from our starting point to raid the Celestial Monastery, another undefended Cathayan settlement which also pushes our quest ahead. The auto-resolve calculator insists that we need to fight this battle or else we lose badly, which just goes to show how little attention he pays to our obvious tactical genius. Micro Games and Danny Arcadia are a few levels stronger now, which makes them far more capable of dealing with these uppity humans. We are able to isolate and eliminate the Defender's archer squadrons, while our summoned distractions keep the infantry occupied and exhausted until they inevitably rout, handing over another valuable settlement. Following each victory, we find a moment of respite and encamp when we can to regain our health. The constant attrition from no home base makes the early game a very delicate and vulnerable dance. We will have to capture a settlement without raising it soon to immunize ourselves from this constant deterioration. Now we use the underway to escape south, away from the greenskins and towards more undefended minor settlements, which are already becoming surprisingly rare. Between underway jumps, we must sneak by garrisons and armies using the ambush stance, but so far have no issues remaining undetected. We take full advantage of Micro's magic and have him sneak to the side of enemy garrisons so he can throw warp stars flankways down their formation before they're even aware of our presence. This greatly improves our performance as we continue our trail of tearing. After destroying Shiyama's Rest, we head to the east coast where I suspect there are still some settlements for us to surprise, but as we grow in strength, so too do the local garrisons, evidenced by another narrow victory. It is clear that we cannot slack in maintaining our momentum, else we will find ourselves obsolete. Having destroyed 5 minor settlements, we are visited by the savagely precise Liquid Zulu, who brings Snick the Whirl of Weeping Blades as a token of good faith. With this added firepower, we try our luck besieging the capital city of Shiwu. We sneak into the city undetected and realize that the wary defenders are erecting blockades, which we hurry to sneak past even as we are detected in the final moments. The defenders rush to meet us within the central courtyard as a furious and bloody melee breaks out. In the chaos of our reinforcements bursting to the surface, we sneak away to claim the control point, only to find out that their nearby defensive towers are connected to different sectors altogether and therefore won't be affected by this loss. We capitalize on the enduring confusion to slip away and reevaluate, and choose to lure them into the back alleyways where Snicks can prey upon their archers until they eventually lose hope and retreat from the city. In the depths of Shiwu, we discover the sickly wizard creating some beautiful retro assets and bring him on board the culling crew. Alright, well, I guess it's time to put some of those crystals to use improving the defenses around here. But first, we had better resolve our assassination procrastination. With 5 assassins secured, it's time to leave Cathay behind us and start heading slowly but surely towards our final objective, Nuln. This means spending many turns sneaking through very hostile environments. We figure, why not reciprocate the bad vibes and declare war on everyone along the way? We start by raising Wily Village, which attracts some unwanted attention. Enemy armies begin to show up and try to stop us, but we see them coming and successfully ambush them on the march. However, this encounter perfectly illustrates our amateur assassination skills, as we are seen far too soon, allowing the enemy general to retreat safely within their mass of troops. Summoned clan rats distract the reinforcements, but we remain bogged down by the bodyguards. The general makes an attempt at escape while we fight to free ourselves, when Mike saves the day by hurling ninja stars into her back, ending the threat and sending the rest into a panicked retreat. As we journey across the south of Cathay, every army we come across is ambushed and eliminated, along with the village of the Tigermen and the Temple of Elemental Winds, which takes us to the mountains of Morn. Now that we're out of Cathay, we find ourselves in not necessarily friendlier terrain. We need to now put some muscle on our rodent roster, but that is easier said than done when they are collectively as strong as a single Cathayan peasant or 1/3 of a pigeon. We're going to need to leverage our only strength to try and gain some experience points here and switch to an even more creative interpretation of fair combat. We sneak into the lands of the Blue Rose and blitz the undefended Knobbly Gorge. We also take this opportunity to send the sickly wizard off on a secret mission, and then raise nearby Shambletown, where we discover Stark Crafts creating an awesome PS1 time-lapse. We send Snikch on a mission as well, having Sirio watch over things while we're away, and hide an ambush stance in the mountains while we wait. Sirio oversees the capture of the Maw Gate, which we get no points for since we occupy it, but as long as it remains in our control, we will take no attrition and can easily regroup with our returning lords and heroes. We spend this time hunting and destroying ogre encampments and armies, which are often wandering around in small numbers. Before long, the opportunity to raise the Great Hall of Greasus presents itself, and within, we discover Arch Monarch, glad to avoid being at ogre's lunch and join our jolly mission. We also manage to raise Grimtop, but then Greasus arrives with a formidable army and chases us out of the mountains. We capture Karak Krakaton to slow the pursuing ogres, who are now joined by Cathayan forces who enter the war by ruining our hideout at the Maw Gate. Clearly, we are no longer welcome in the east. During this perilous time, we had been sending our agents off on secret assignments on behalf of Clan Moors, an opportunity which is unique to our faction, Clan Eshin, which will eventually provide us with a flat 15% bonus weapon damage. This process also ingratiates us with them, so we travel to their lands to take refuge and plan our next moves. Along the way, we discover that Imrik has left Bitter Bay completely undefended and can't help ourselves, so we burn it down. Just as Clan Moors welcomes us into their territory, the nearby Skaven faction Clan Rictus lives up to its treacherous reputation by declaring war on us, which gives us some pretty clear ideas about where to expand our operations next. After sneaking deep within Tretch's fortress, Karak Azul, we carefully observe the defenses around the primary control points and conceive of our plan of attack. All 7 of our heroes charge headlong towards their forces in a frenzied surprise attack, which lures the bulk of the defenders directly into the narrow passage where we have made ourselves known. Once the majority of their soldiers are committed, we summon a squad of clan rats behind them and have our cunning agents slip through in the chaos. While the defenders struggle to break through our reinforcements, we sneakily capture the key building. The garrison attempts to recapture the defensible position in several waves, but is repulsed each time until only we remain. And now that Karak Azul has been claimed as our new home base, we raise Black Iron Mine as we begin our outright invasion of Clan Rictus. It also seems to be an opportune time for us to claim the Cloak of Shadows, which will enable us to succeed in ambushing virtually every single time we attack. This quest battle tasks us with assassinating a series of patrolling lords, which we handle with expert precision. Each of the lords is isolated from his bodyguards and rapidly slain until the main army finally has enough and charges at us. Mike Rowe's magic brings the enemy to their knees as our assassins scythe through their ranks. Dark Elf reinforcements arrive late to try and stop us, but Snikch dispatches their leader without breaking a sweat. By the time we return with our fancy new equipment, Clan Rictus is having a severe allergic reaction to our unexpected self-defense, and their state completely collapses before we can even participate in its dissolution. When we reach what we thought was going to be Tretch's capital, Crookback Mountain, we find it swarming instead with greenskins. The orcs make for a disappointing substitute for our Skaven rivals and fail to defend their captured holding when we launch a direct assault. Trolls, goblins, and spider cavalry alike meet a merciless end in the shadowy valley of Crookback Mountain until only our 7 compadres remain. Deep in the caves of the mount, we find Vibers stalking orcs in the underway, who happily joins our team. Why destroy one capital when you could destroy 2? It is plain as day now that the Darklands are in complete disarray and in a perfect state for exploitation, having been exposed to lethal volumes of the Greenskins' decivilizing forces. Unfortunately for the orcs, it is precisely this kind of disordered chaos that our assassins strive in. Just as they had defiled a dwarven settlement in the previous siege, now the Greenskins have polluted a Chaos Dwarf settlement with their fungal filth. We slip over the walls and fight our way towards the inner sanctum until we find ourselves completely surrounded. Unfortunately for the Greenskins, our agents are all level 20 and above by now, and make quick work of them, bringing their defilement of the Tower of Gorgoth to an end. While we are chasing the remaining Vandals away, Quake Riley appears and explains that he had been stalking and hunting the Greenskins in this settlement for days, and joins our cause also. We then claim the Gates of Zar by sneaking our way to the primary control point, tricking the Greenskins into abandoning their posts and charging recklessly into our ambush at the center of the settlement. Purging the Greenskins from the Darklands has brought us to nearly 10 characters, and after we destroy Howling Rock, Space Drake joins our forces, and we mark our quest as roughly halfway complete. Coinciding with our 10th recruit, Imric destroys our home at Karak Azul, which makes now the perfect time to head west. Before our adventure can progress any further, we must secure the World's Edge Archway, or else we will be significantly hindered by the attrition caused by us possessing no settlements. Having been distracted from this playthrough for so long means we have no time to spare replenishing constant attritional losses, but a failed siege could also set us back more time than we can afford. It might seem at face value like assassins would only be good at fighting one-on-one, or even that they rely on dirty tricks and underhanded ploys, but that's the kind of ugly stereotype we work hard to overcome. When you have 10 assassins, some of which being quite high level, you could say the odds are somewhat evened out. Our blob of murder forces its way through each squad of the Greenskins garrison without so much as breaking a sweat, leaving a trail of spider and gobby giblets in their wake. It only takes capturing a few control points to break the resolve of the defenders completely, leaving the settlement in our control and granting us a temporary reprieve from attrition. In order to guarantee that our eventual attack on Nuln is successful on the first try, we must obtain every conceivable advantage beforehand, which means raising every settlement we can get our hands on while staying mobile enough to outmaneuver the retaliations of the disgruntled property owners. The few turns we spend in the archways seeking replenishment already prove too many when a group of dwarves seeking to reclaim their former holding march up and start trying to break in. Our paltry garrison is only large enough to defend one side of the settlement, leaving our heroes to defend the rest themselves. The dwarves in particular are an intimidating foe for us, nullifying all of our strengths with their resilience and exploiting all of our weaknesses with their hard-hitting attacks. We subject their southern assaults to a brutal war of attrition, while waiting nervously for their unimpeded northern force to reach our heroes on the control point. When their leader suddenly opts to charge headfirst into an obvious gangbang completely by himself, getting launched out of his chair by a vicious attack performed on his hindquarters. With their leader laid low, the siege party no longer sees the appeal in enduring the withering fire of our defensive installations and bitterly leaves the archways to us. Now that control over our new base is completely secure, we resume our injurious journey by raising the high place, and immediately get ambushed in the process. It turns out that Thorgrim was eager for round 2 with the pummelers of posteriors. Inexplicably, Tzeentch gifts us with a squadron of chaos spawn. It must be that the Changer of Ways appreciates the spectacle of our rear attacks. Using the chaos spawn as distractions allows us to get behind the dwarven lines and attack their most dangerous ranged units directly. While the Thunderers and Flamethrowers are forcibly decommissioned, Snikch goes directly for Thorgrim until some miners rudely interrupt him with a salvo of blasting charges. The reinforcements are not enough to keep the Dawi Daimyo from fleeing another inevitable pounding, however, and Snikch finishes him with a humiliating keister karate chop. We then move through the World's Edge Mountains like an avalanche, raising Mount Squighorn, Pillars of Grungni, Barag Dawazbag, and Doc Karaz, where we find Sirio playing with explosives along the way. By this point, we're on the Greenskins' naughty list in red permanent marker, and they have every intention of punishing us for our unsolicited renovations. Grizgut's Gutstabba and his trusted sidekick Thaga are sent by the Bloody Hands to put an end to our incursions. Typical of Greenskins, the leaders charge headlong into our kill zone the moment they become aware of it, while the slightly less dim-witted, although remarkably more disgusting, river troll hag Grimfang attempts to find safety deep in the swarm of their greenskin underlings. Unfortunately for her, the squad tasked with dispatching her maneuver through the horde easily, although the orcs pile in denser and denser, allowing her to at least outlast the two commanders who are already dead and buried. Ultimately, Snikch gets the last laugh on Grimfang, and the remaining orcs flee to the hills. With their paltry schemes swept aside, we continue our redecorating marathon in the Bitterstone Mine and move on to Ekrund, a capital city of the regional Greenskins' power. Taking control of Ekrund is as easy as going in the unguarded back door, knifing a few trolls picking their noses at the back of the settlement, and then murdering waves of orcs who just rush at us nearly single file. Whenever they get hesitant about being shanked, we just stand on a control point, which overrides their better judgment and causes them to charge headfirst into our waiting daggers. Realizing the hopelessness of the situation, the defenders flee from their posts in a calm and collected manner as we jeer at them for amusement. After we raise Ekrund, we find Eric B. Elastic chasing terrified Greenskins. We move on to raise the Dragonhorn Mines and Myrmidons, where Toxic Mask joins us in the hopes of making some serious dosh. We raise Argalis, Verdanos, and Zavorak, where Maxwell Hopkins joins our party as an envoy from Skavenblight. At this point, we chose to hop onto a boat and sail south. Although this is a major U-turn, we want to avoid reaching Nuln prematurely, which is only a few settlements further in the direction we were currently headed. Luckily, the settlements in the south are ripe for harvesting, and we immediately raise Virus, although the capital city Alhaik decided to put up some real resistance to our banditry. In these new lands, we encounter the Tomb King's faction Khemri, a nation whose rank-and-file skeletons are easy pickings for our assassins, but whose constructs can occasionally pose a legitimate threat. It is essential that we keep on the move and avoid their more developed armies, but luckily our surprise attack has caught them totally off guard for now. I'm not really sure why Alhaik looks like it should be on a poster advertising Sylvanian tourism, but at least our rats blend in better this way. Our infiltrators demand the attention of the defenders when they launch a surprise attack directly against the central command point. After all the panicking defenders rush to address the threat, we sneak the rest of our forces in on the other side of the city completely unnoticed, and capture the secondary objective as well. The defenders had managed to maintain some reserves despite our efforts, and even attempted their own sneak attack to recapture the secondary objective. Unfortunately for them, the sickly wizard is now strong enough to race back and destroy them all completely on his own. With Alhaik reduced to rubble, we free rogue VR, who wastes no time in helping us ruin Kofur, Martek, and Lashik. However, we run into some trouble when we reach Vulture Mountain, where Khemri has been assembling a force to restore his imperial authority. The Khemrians assembled at Vulture Mountain are strong and numerous, and the city is sprawling with many disparate strategic objectives. We must split our forces if we are to secure the objectives and outmaneuver the defenders, but this is a risky play for some of our newer recruits. We send our freshest new assassins to capture the lowest point in the city together, which unexpectedly stirs the entirety of the defending forces into charging towards them in a berserk rage. This opens up the way to the central objective for our other two elite squads, which is very good. But our new assassins start taking a brutal pummeling, which is bad. Just a few minutes into the siege, the key building is under our control thanks to the defenders being distracted, causing numerous defensive emplacements to collapse. However, our brave new recruits lose the battle in the bottom and are in serious trouble until summoned clan rats arrive to buy them time. Capitalizing on the diversion, they sneakily escape and conceal themselves. The skeletons that had defeated us at the low objective were so badly damaged in the process that they completely crumble before they can join the rest of their team in defending the central point, causing a cascade of surrender throughout the enemy ranks until only rats remain, claiming another major victory. As a result of claiming Vulture Mountain, we find Selvalis sorting through his trophy skulls, who helps us raise the Sorcerer's Island, freeing Rollout 123 from Archon's deepest dungeon in the process. From now on, we'll only bother with capital settlements to save time. Having silenced Khemri's defenses on the west coast serves only to further disturb the Hornet's Nest, and soon, legions of skeletal enforcers are swarming the Atalan Mountains. King Rahotep is leading his vanguard army directly into our last known location, where our master assassins are waiting patiently to spring a deadly trap. They emerge from the sands and emulsify the Tomb King's clackering bones before the column behind him even realizes what's happening. Once they finally notice that their leader is in 10 different pieces and not moving, the rest of our elite badasses descend on them with the ruthlessness befitting a murderous rat pack, and tear them bone from bone. With Micro's magic decimating our foes wherever they cluster, victory was assured before the enemy had even known there would be a battle. However, destroying one Osseous outfit is far from sufficient to diminish the wrath of Settra. Having been ordered to bring Settra our heads, King Hapros lays a trap for us, and our growing hubris allows us to arrogantly walk right into it. Seeking to minimize their ranged and mounted advantages, we spread out amongst the palms and let the enemy crash into us in the forest. It is a commendable attempt on our lives, but the enemy simply cannot outmaneuver our nimble ninjas, who surround and destroy each unit piecemeal as the rest of our gang keeps their army stuck in place. Having retired all of Cetra's cunning plans to oust us from his domain, we arrive at the last of our targets in Araby, the Wizard Caliph's palace. The defenses are augmented with all kinds of nefarious equipment, so we hatch a devious plan. After our forces nimbly navigate their way through the walls unnoticed, a handful of our agents break away to dispatch the catapults and the chariots stationed nearby, while the main team fights for the primary objective. With their equipment taken offline, the defenders quickly realize they stand no chance, and their bones simply pop apart like balloons. After razing the Wizard Caliph's palace and obtaining Thorkel the Tall, our party is nearly at capacity. It is time to return to the old world where we can finally complete our mission. However, we decide to plot our path home with some detours in mind. We set sail on the high seas to visit the galleon's graveyard, where we find Reggie crocheting a quilt for his pirate pals. From there, it's only a short trip north to Ulthuan, where we throw a surprise party at Val's Anvil, releasing Mrs. from his high poly imprisonment. Having 20 heroes is a real cool situation and all, but what we really need is 20 overpowered death machines, and that's not what this is. Not satisfied to rely on our numbers alone, we reave the coast of Ulthuan in search of experience points and the ultimate weapon, the Sword of Cain. It appears that feminist Alarielle is in possession of it, which is not surprising considering its nickname, the Widowmaker. So at this point, taking it for ourselves is basically a public service. It does not take long for Tyrion to put together a welcome party for us, which we regrettably forget to attend. In fact, seeing Tyrion flying down the west coast like a bat out of hell is ample motivation for us to head east and into the interior of the continent. We take the opportunity to knock his capital out, hoping to cause enough emotional damage to distract Tyrion from his amateur rat-catching hobby. I have to imagine that Tyrion's citizens aren't super impressed with him right now. Yesterday he was all, "I'm leaving with the army to go chase down some rats," and today he's completely absent while those same rats are killing everybody. Unfortunately, the garrison still has dragons and phoenixes and all kinds of other grievous annoyances, so we still have to do a little scheming. We try to get as deep into the city unnoticed as we can, but it turns out that man-sized rats are somewhat conspicuous. So instead, we just run past the very confused patrols, relying on their bewilderment to slow their response time. Our luck eventually runs out and the elves manage to surround us, but 20 high-level assassins eviscerate the Silverin Guard so fast I didn't even have time to write a joke about it. Meanwhile, a very confused phoenix drops in on the center of the Doomstack and breaks the world record for fastest dying monster in Total Warhammer. At this point, we're using the word assassin in the same way that a bull in a China shop assassinates the fine pottery. At this point, we're feeling extremely confident, even shrugging off a downhill cavalry charge. When we do get bogged down, Mike Rowe's magic bursts a hole in their formations and we just carry on with our cross-Ulthuan marathon. Even the elves are getting excited about keeping pace with our race. Next, the aforementioned dragon drops in and manages to die even faster than the Phoenix did, as well as the enemy general who bafflingly chooses to fight our entire stack on his own. Despite killing their leader and monsters, we also managed to keep almost the entire city's garrison alive as we maneuvered through it, meaning that even with the central control point, we're going to have to do some backtracking and scour the place of knife ears. A legitimately very bloody and very long battle erupts for the heart of Lothern as the elves use their ranged weapons to great effectiveness, draining our health points even as we side through their ranks. It doesn't seem to discourage them at all when every hero they send is instantly eradicated. In the end, we assign one assassin to each remaining archer formation, and this keeps them on the back foot long enough that they decide it would be better to just let us have the damn city. With Tyrion now presumably thoroughly distracted by his homeland getting torched, we figured it would be a straight shot north, but naturally there are even more elves jumping at the chance to simp for Alarielle. Being assassins and all, we sneak through the trees to avoid this Illyrian army seeking to earn brownie points with the Everqueen. Despite being aware of our sneaky nature, the elves choose to stand still in a clearing surrounded by forests on all sides. After navigating to the optimal position from which to launch an ambush, an absolutely nutty bloodbath breaks out in the tree line once the elves finally become aware of our antics, and quickly devolves into one of the most chaotic battles I've ever seen, with rats and elves completely scattered all over the hillside, with no indication of who is winning or which ground belongs to whom. We slowly gather any assassins who find a chance to slip away and send them back in on a surprise attack against the enemy's rear, which combines with their staggering losses to result in a complete collapse of the enemy's morale. Despite leaving an unprecedented trail of destruction in our wake as we circumnavigated Ulthuan, our campaign of carnage fails to distract Tyrion from his divinely inspired purpose of being a pain in our asses. He shows up right when we have the least patience for distractions and demands blood for blood. I guess leveling all those cities was completely for nothing. Oops. Tyrion arrives with the desire to end our lives written explicitly on his face, and his forces immediately pursue us with such furious energy that there could be no mistaking his intent. He charges headfirst into our doomstack, and we absolutely mog the shit out of him. Eagles, dragon princes, and lions of Crace crash into us in a frenzy and enable Tyrion to escape the hugging circle with his life. He continues to command his troops from the front, but we are unable to get to him due to the sheer mass of his soldiers. Using Eshin magic, Mike Rowe summons a windstorm which blasts all but the heftiest foes off their feet and out of the fight long enough for our crew to reach Tyrion for a renewed paddling, when he audaciously makes use of one of the cheesiest, cheaty, no-good foul plays of all time. He heals himself with magic, that bastard. Thanks to his restored health point pool, Tyrion manages to slip away once again, much to the frustration of our trained killers. In a masterstroke of genius unlike anything we had ever seen, however, Tyrion then turns around at the edge of the map and decides to return right back to the fight with nearly 1% of his health remaining. Zulu and Danny Arcadia slip away and ambush him on his way back, only to have him cast another healing spell and race off into the night. The indecisiveness of this elf is making me queasy. Our assassins don't even bother pursuing him, tired of his cowardly shenanigans. We focus instead on the remaining Aetane warriors, only a few of which have not yet fled in response to witnessing the craven acts of their general. Chariots and a few archers continue to put up a struggle, but what the fuck? Tyrion is back again with more health, only this time there's nobody left to save him from our dog pile, and yeah, he doesn't make it. Tyrion was undoubtedly the most dangerous of the elves, and his death signals our dominance in the continent. Alarielle and her handmaidens take note of this and are assembling a force to resist us in Nagaroth, which means that our prize is within sight. With the Sword of Cain in our possession, there would be none who could hope to resist us. Now, we simply have to seize it. We split our forces in half and attempt a diversionary attack to clear a path towards our true target, Alarielle. But this does not go as planned. Alarielle and her eagles soar to the discovered infiltrators and peck their eyes right out of their heads. The normally frail Alarielle is no pushover with the Sword of Cain in hand, and it is painfully clear that our diversionary squad are in mortal peril. Making use of smoke bombs and fake news, we distract the defenders long enough to just barely escape with our lives and plan a second strategy. While Alarielle was busy mutilating our men, we had Snikch and company capture the other side of the roughly symmetrical settlement. Having her favorite hair salon in our hands is an intolerable state of affairs for Alarielle, and she comes storming over with every intention of teaching us the same lesson. When she lands, we manage to get all 20 assassins on her, and yet her spells and enchantments keep her at 100% health despite the flurry of cuts and slashes. She targets Mike Rowe and nearly kills him outright early into the fight, making it clear that this is going to be no cheesy pushover. Despite grievously wounding each and every one of our heroes, she eventually succumbs to the dogpile and goes down, Sword of Cain in hand. With her heroes all slain, we much more easily euthanize the giant eagles and cavalry, sticking close together and vastly outperforming the infantry who challenge us. Soon, the settlement is ablaze, and we have our prize. With Ulthuan in no state to pursue us further, and the powerful artifact we sought now in our scheming clutches, we are ready to pursue the final objective and put this realm to rest. The tears and distortions typical of a neglected save file are beginning to show at the furthest edges of this dimension, and we have taken as much spare time as we could afford obtaining this weapon. Now it is time to return to the old world. Reaching Nuln would be a problem if we were a faction which lacked access to the Underway, since the Empire is normally protected by more than a handful of capable armies and imposing border fortresses. Luckily, we have the ability to completely circumvent all of those inconveniences entirely. We skip all of the potentially interesting conflicts for science. It's a simple matter of slipping away from Ulthuan over to Bretonnia and sneaking our way through the Grey Mountains. Stealthing our way along the highlands and vales, we eventually reach Karak Norn, a dwarf settlement from which we can use the Underway to launch ourselves directly on top of Nuln. Since we brilliantly chose to delay declaring war on the Golden Order, they have no chance of reacting to our infiltration in time to prevent the siege. The Golden Order has characteristically fortified Nuln with no shortage of artillery and ranged weapons. We split up into 6 groups of 3, with Snikch and Mike Rowe leading the central thrust of our attack. Our scheme is simple. Overwhelm the enemy by launching simultaneous sneak attacks on every major avenue of approach. Surely, a weak spot will reveal itself, allowing the opportunistic assassins to pass through and attack the defenders' artillery. Snik's group encounters the largest resistance, but also the attention of the Imperial Mortar Battery, which does far more damage to the humans than the rats. The 2 nearest squads gang up on a single defensive emplacement, rapidly destroying it along with its defenders. On the northern side of the city, the enemy sends its cavalry down the massive ramp, which gives them room to maneuver, but unfortunately, their indecisiveness means that they fail to execute an effective charge, and end up preyed upon by ready assassins. Despite tanking a volley of flintlocks directly in the face, Snikch effortlessly brutalizes the commander of the defense, Hans von Prestock, hitting him for more than 30% of his health with every blow. Reggie's squad disables the mortars and volley guns being moved from the north back to the central control point, and get engaged with an improvised barricade. Despite the defenders successfully holding us in place for a commendable amount of time, all at once the defenses seem to collapse, and every one of our 6 squads breaks through its obstacles and charges into the central courtyards of Nuln. Using the Sword of Cain's dark magic, Snikch destroys the barricades that remain and storms the final objectives. Despite the defenders holding on for as long as they could, we claim the settlement and complete the campaign. Don't forget to use my link in the description or scan my QR code to get a major head start in Raid Shadow Legends.